Hello everybody, that's Dead Soon. I'm Tolus. We're shooting this to debunk some of the myths about various arrows and to record the results of some basic breakage tests. We have a little bit of a selection there from all different types and levels of tech, old school, new school, my stuff, other people's stuff. We have some sample shafts, particularly a lot of wood shafts here that have been taped and tubed to various degrees, so we can show off what's going to go on with that. Muffin, go ahead and hold up that Dora ball there. This is what we chose to do for an analog for a legal tip. It's a 2.5-inch ball. That's a throwy. It's been, as you can see, electrical taped all the way up the shaft and then inserted into the middle of the ball. So that'll provide us with some really identifiable size measurements that anybody can duplicate and easily recognize. As you can see, this is Dora. She's being explored by this shaft right now. More on that later. But this is one I wanted to start with. If you look at the shaft, I don't know if you can tell or not. It's been taped. There's one layer of tape on this one, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one layer. Did you bring the packing tape out? Go grab the packing tape. I'll keep talking. There's one layer of packing tape on this one. We have another one with 3 layers. And then another yet for a single layer that's going to be a straight break test. Now, while he's in there, we'll talk about this. I think most people who have an objection or a fear of a wooden arrow break are concerned about this. They're concerned that there's something that can happen to a wooden arrow to turn it into this. And I want to show you what it takes to actually produce this out of an arrow shaft grade wooden dowel. So I'm going to hand this to Dead Soon.
And then here's the tape, by the way.
Yeah, this is Duck brand Easy Start packing tape. That's the one we're using for the demonstration. If you go on the Duck website, you can see all the specs on the burst strength PSI and the number of mils. I believe this one is a 3 mil tape. This could be a 2.7. I forget, but it is available. But that's the tape we're using for our test tape for all the things. The dowels for the wood for this particular demonstration are birch. They are 11/32 grade birch, and these are all from a batch I got 40 sample arrows of, and they're absolutely rough shafting. They're not finished in any way at all, so they've not been lacquered, they've not been stained, they've not even been straightened, which is how some of them were damaged prior to this test. But this particular one is okay. Now just flex it from end to end, nice and slow, until it breaks. You can see what happens. So there you can see that's where the point of it failed. It didn't come all the way loose, but it did produce some nice pointy bits. You can see that when it does come loose, there's still pointy bits on there. And that's pretty pointy. And again, that's what the fear is. And you saw how Dead Soon broke that one is by grasping it from end to end and breaking it apart that way. Where's the single tape?
That is the Dora.
That's the Dora one. Okay, so that's for our first step test. So this is going to be the triple tape. So let's look at what 3 layers of tape does under those similar conditions. Yeah, just snap it. So here you can see it broke in a similar spot, but now you have the letter L. That's correct. The letter L, there are no jagged bits. I can even straighten it back out and the tape still isn't breached. So flex that at the joint until the tape breaks and you have 2 parts. Didn't take long, but as you can see, the result, because of the extra support from the tape, is 2 flat ends. That's not very pointy, is it?
No.
It's barely distinguishable from the flat end, which still isn't good to be hit with at speed, but this is going to be on the ground when this happens. This is our tube shaft. Go ahead and do the same thing with a tube shaft. And as you can see, okay, now we have a letter V, but it actually had a different failure point, which is okay. But if you can tell, the reason that this turned into a V instead of an L, it got way past the amount of flexion that was required to break that one with just the tape on it. So not only have we added some protection against it splintering again directly from the tubing, we've actually added structural integrity to the arrow itself, enough where it didn't break at the same amount of flexion, even though it's a exact same material, same diameter, things like that.
So do the same thing on
Yeah,
this?
do the same thing. Just work it around until you can break it in half. It's not going to take a whole lot longer, but it should take longer.
Yeah, it took a little longer.
The end result's the same though. What you end up with, if and when it does come apart,
That one hurt because it's a little perk, but that's not because.
well, you're used to that.
Yeah.
Boom.
Oh yeah. Of course.
Yeah, either way, it's not. It's clearly not. Here.
What?
Go ahead.
Oh,
No, with the jacket in.
that is the jagged end.
No, that's the other.
Oh no,
end.
it's not, is it?
Yeah, that's not the end that broke. I mean, you can see with the end that broke. And here, try the one that you yelped on, just so we can be all scientific.
Oh, now it's dull.
I see now. Yeah, right. You took the brunt of it. Thank you so much. Regardless, it's exceptionally safer than this, which I'm not going to bother jagging anybody with, especially if I like them. That would never, in a responsible park or by a responsible archer, make it onto the field in this format in the first place. And anybody would instantly pick this up and throw it in the trash if they saw it on the field in the second place. Now, this is going to be for our carbon snap test. This, as you can see, is an exceptionally nice cross-woven Easton carbon that someone, and I'll show you some more examples of this later, foamed up and took to AmpGuard without an insert in the tip of it. And you can go ahead and Google that or YouTube that to your heart's content, and you can see what happens when a carbon fiber arrow hits something solid without having the tip insert in place. It's not good. So grab some popcorn, whatever kind of snacks you watch when you're watching like monster trucks or wrestling. That's what you're going to want. It's fairly exciting. But again, because of the low power of our equipment and the general, rules of safety, they probably kept checking the tip until it was cheesed and never shot it with a cheese tip, and that's huge. But regardless, this was on the field until the fletchings failed, not once but twice. Now you can see that the aluminum collar on the back to prevent it bursting at the knock is there. But when I took this one apart, you can see there's still packing tape on it from the tip. When I cut the tip off of this, that's all that was there. There was absolutely nothing keeping that carbon fiber from splintering. But again, you can tell. I don't know if you can tell or not, but you can see here very clearly that it's just not splintered. I mean, it does have a small linear crack in it, but even then the tape is holding it together. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one now.
Oh, yeah.
Do the same thing. Grasp it towards the ends there, and just flex it till it breaks. Don't point it towards me. Point it down towards the ground.
Yeah,
towards
it's not.
the
It doesn't even want to break.
It doesn't even want to bend.
Yeah, I can't even fucking break it. It's too. The carbon fibers won't bend too well, I think. I mean,
Here.
we can try. You
Hold
can
that
try.
there. Yeah. Here, turn around this way. Are you,
Yeah, that's on
can you
there.
see it?
Oh, okay, there it went.
Yeah, it's a little bit frightening,
Yeah.
and it's loud and poppy. And at first glance, it looks like it's just as innocuous as the wood. But if you take a little bit closer look, you can see there's some pretty nasty fibers in there. And as you can see again, they come off pretty easily. They flake away and get stuck in your, they get stuck in a wound. They fall on the ground and get stuck in your foot. It's not any safer. Obviously, it took a lot more flexion to snap this, and that's not something that we're here to debate at all. We're talking about arrows that fail. And when this arrow fails, it's just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, untaped than this wooden one is. And you can see that here definitively. And that's all I'm on about. Calling one of these more or less safe than the other is really, really subjective, and it depends on the terms that you're talking about. And the terms that the wooden arrows were banned under is that when they fail, they are less safe. And I don't think that's the case. And I think that demonstrates this point pretty clearly. Now, as far as wear and tear goes, this is basically what's out there currently. This is our Dora ball here, and you can see this is under one of the birch shafts that you can step on it here, and it's generally fine. This is on concrete. It's not giving any. You can step on the tip, you can step on the back of the shaft, you can roll it around, you can kick it. It's fairly resilient. It stands up to damage like that fairly well, especially with the tip on there. Even though it does create this angle under here, because it's laying on the ground like this. Here, illustrate that. It has this angle that is being pushed against the tip, and this obviously isn't taped on very tight, but you get the idea. Let's go out here and step on it in the grass. go ahead and switch with me again.
Right.
You're just more photogenic than me. How did that get... Bro, do you even door? Yeah, just throw it down there and stomp on it. Okay, now that's actually a little bit more aggressive than I was hoping for, but that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes...
Hey, you said stomp on it.
No, if you shoot into combat, it's not unlikely that a dozen people are going to stomp on it just like that until the battle resolves itself. So go ahead and pick it up and look at it now. Bring it back. Bring it back. Did you manage to break it?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's not broken.
This is another point I wanted to touch on, is how to tell for sure if it's broken. And the most surefire way is just to grab it as close to one of the ends that you think it might be damaged on and just bend it back with your hand. I mean, this isn't really a viable option on aluminums, but as we're going to see in a minute, aluminums will tell you without really having to ask very hard that they're broken. So you can see here that the wood shaft's pretty durable, even under that case. But I know we've all seen wood shafts break under those same conditions, where it gets stomped on with a tip on the end and it breaks. I have one here that did just that. This particular one, this is one of my...
Let's get the door ball out of the way.
Yeah, get the door ball away. This is one of my current field arrows that has the 5 or 6 mils of effectively liquid tape, ethyl cellulose gasket lacquer. It soaks into the wood. It creates a layer of wood, like a shell, in there on that first coat. And the other coats are just there to add extra thickness and resiliency and a sort of plywood effect to it, because you let it dry and sand it between coats. So it has this really nice armored shell on here, and you can see the proofs in the pudding. This one I stepped on accidentally myself in the heat of combat. It was right at my feet, and I had actually fought over to pick it up and wasn't able to retrieve it before I got rushed. So this one I broke myself. You can see it snapped just like the ones that were taped and tubed, and this is something I tested a number of times before I brought these on the field to show, and demonstrated to a number of people before I brought them on the field to show that it was viable and just as safe as multiple layers of tape. This one we can do again. Grab the door ball there and switch them out.
Switch them out?
Okay. Yeah. No, put the door ball.
Put the door ball on the line. Okay.
Yeah. Alright, so go on the concrete now and give it the business.
Different parts of my foot, so it's not
Yeah.
just hitting the heel.
Did you get it? Did you get it?
Broke it. Yeah, I just broke it.
Yeah, you
there.
stomped it good that time. Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Go ahead and, okay, this is going to be important. Now, we heard the crack. If you look down the arrow, you can just barely see the crack. But if you shot it into an area that has been stepped on, just about everybody who has one is going to check it to see if it's broken. Now, if this was under electrical tape, it would be slightly harder to see, but you can still feel and hear the flex in it when it breaks. Now, this is an important part that I didn't think for sure that we would get a chance to test, but we can, because of the way this one broke.
Fire.
Yeah, just fire at the. Well, it doesn't have a proper tip on it, so it's really short anyway. So just give it about a half full and just launch it through there. Yeah. So go and grab it there. So it technically still shoots. I don't know if you noticed the flight path or not. It was extremely erratic, and anybody who's seen these arrows in actual use will tell you for a fact that they fly very, very straight in a tight spiral, and that arrow did neither. Fire through the door and hit the far wall. Or you could just totally miss and hit the front door. That's fine too. It probably had more velocity there. Door is okay. Our crack's still here. The lacquer has held everything together. But you can see If I pop it with my hand,
Actually, door blew through.
no, that's the side I cut.
Oh, okay. You sure? Because there's a hole.
Well, then it must have blown through.
Yeah, it blew through.
Well, it didn't have a
it's just
washer or anything.
Yeah, it's
It
just open
was,
cell foam. I mean,
Yeah, it was exactly like the fiberglass arrows that I took apart that we'll get to in a minute. You can see again though, the end that broke, and that's my hand, and I'm not bleeding. You can see that. The end that broke is perfectly fine. Which one should we do next? Let's look at aluminum. These are the standard 2018 Hunter North American from Walmart. Sadly not available in red, white, and blue. You'll see a common factor here. This is another one. Took apart a whole bunch of these. No insert. So underneath whatever they had on here, I believe it was carpet tape and penny. Solid aluminum. Now, the wood would leave a little bit of a hole in you. This is basically a 30-inch long flying hypodermic. So not pretty or good or fun, but these are making it on the field right now, and totally legal, not banned at all. There's absolutely no rule or requirement that says you have to have an insert in the tip for an aluminum arrow or a carbon arrow. That requirement doesn't exist. The only extra requirement other than the materials limitations are that wood arrows be taped to the shaft, which I think we can see is a really, really good thing, that you have some form of protection on it. But other things like this and the missing insert and the carbon the holes need to be plugged, I think. So let's do the door ball on.
it's already partially blew through.
It's okay. The little nub of tape left from the tip will help it. So stomp the crap out of it.
Oh, okay.
It's like you're purposely trying to break it instead of making incidental contact, but
Well, I mean,
I think the tip took the brunt of that wear, but that happens in the field too. So you can see there's no real visible damage as far as, because this is a metal tube, but if you look down the tube, and I don't know if you can tell in the film again, it's very clearly bent. And if you were to shoot this, it would fly in probably some weird kind of poor-ass wobbly pattern. Now, just to be fair and scientific and thorough, snap it.
snap it.
Snap it. Point it towards the ground. There you go, in case it pops.
Yeah.
Now, this...
It's like a piece of wire it just folds over.
It's really, really obvious that you have a problem here if your arrow looks like this or like that. But as you can see, the minute I touched it with my hand, that's really, really sharp. I'm not jagging that into my hand or anything else. And I don't have anything here I feel like cutting, but I need to just go up to the fence here.
There's this right here. It's just to see like this board.
I mean, that cut the same groove in this fence that my knife does. So this is also completely legal to use on the field. No rules about having a knock insert, no rules about having a tip insert, no rules about protective coating on the end. But this has been deemed safe, whereas the wood arrows that we tested first have been deemed to be illegally unsafe. Here we're going to look at, whoa, I've knocked everything down.
Carpet tape with a wire.
Yeah. Now here we're going to look at the property of someone that I actually do know, who I haven't run into yet since this was given to me. As you can see, this person has properly labeled their equipment. The camera doesn't want to focus. IO of Rising Winds.
She does
Now,
have an insert.
that's correct, because IO is the goods. IO does have an insert, like you're supposed to. And if you'll notice, again, I don't know what level of detail is going to come through, there are no micro cracks or hairline cracks or any signs of wear at the tip of this one, nor are there at the knock. And this is a specific carbon knock. Now, I'm not going to break IOs. The reason that it's here, it was done well. It was done right. And that's possible. And the result is that it's nice and good. I feel similarly as I do that you shouldn't really half-ass things when you're shooting them out of a bow and they could potentially skewer someone, but that's part of the other reason why we're here. This is another field arrow of mine. One of the these shafts are actually cedar and not birch. This one is a lot shorter than my other shafts because in my post I described how to field repair a wood arrow. And this one is actually out of circulation because the tip is cheesed. And that's another thing that we want to talk about in terms of safety is cheese tips, but I think that's another conversation. But you can see here how it's wrapped. This is how I do mine. It's compression wrapped at the base to form sort of an aerodynamic cone, but it also allows me to spin balance them so that they fly more straight. Now this one was my prototype, the test arrow for the heat shrink tubing, and it has tubing all the way up to the butt of the fletchings here. These fletchings have been through a bit. Either way, this one is in remarkably good shape, but I wanted to subject it to the same test anyway, because why not?
Are you stomping?
Stomp away.
Go ahead. There's 10.
Yeah, I heard you break it. Now the question is going to be, did it break at the tubing or below? And it broke at the tubing. So you can see the heat shrink tubing here, keeping everything together. Still keeping everything together. It's still together.
You literally have to twist it apart.
Yeah, you have. I mean, it takes all that to do, and look at what you end up with. Once again, clunk, 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 clunk. Still not good. Still needs to be taken off the field, but still not going to give you a puncture wound or slice your arteries open and bleed you out on the field when you're picking it up. Now, this is the other piece that's left. Once again, dull, exceptionally dull, a very flat, nice, clean break. And you can see because of the angle of the tip and the compression and everything else that even though the heat shrink tubing technically ended right there where the tape from the cover used to be, still did its job. It still broke where it should have. This is actually kind of fun. Now here is another prototype that I did to test a new fletching pattern. Brilliant SC colors on display there. This is a fiberglass arrow, and if you can see from the end, any of you from the south like I am know exactly what this is for. Maybe some of you from the Midwest. This is a fishing arrow designed to punch a hole through a carp. It's not really suitable for amp guard for a bunch of different reasons, but the biggest one is that it's amazingly heavy. We call this one the dump truck because it's so heavy. It performs very poorly out of a 35-pound bow, especially with this really light head on it. And if you want to read more about the physics of arrows and why that's the case, then reading is fundamental, and you can Google that. But right now, we're going to take this other one that's here. And remember, this is also a completely unregulated item. So this just says fiberglass shafting. It doesn't require it to be taped. Again, like all of the other things here, it doesn't require that it has any sort of adapter on the front to keep it from splintering. And you can't see this here because it's fiberglass and it's very, very thin, but it's already got little shavings coming off of the tip of it. Another point of concern here, when I found this constructed, again, these were given to me, when I found this, it was actually in use on the field the day it was given to me. I got home, out of curiosity, I took one apart. Oh, look, it's everybody's favorite, I don't know, there's a lot of adjectives. Person, CAD. Anyway, when I got this home, the tip had actually been closed off with a piece of dowel rod and nothing else. So there was about a 1-inch chunk of, what was that, 3/4 inch dowel rod?
Yeah, maybe.
And a hole had been drilled in it, and this has been inserted into that hole. And every single one of them, this arrow had punched out a peg the size of the arrow. But we're running out of time here.
Size of the arrow, and also through
all the way through the noodle.
The pegs were going through the
all the way through the noodle.
tips.
But yeah, noodle tips are bad. That's a topic for another day. Go ahead and I don't think you'll be able to break this one, but go ahead and try. You have 1 minute left.
1 minute.
Point it down. Point it down.
You're
Point
actually
it down.
timing yourself?
No, there's running out of memory on the camera. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think you'll be able to break it.
Yeah, not
which
without-
isn't a concern for fiberglass, but the fact that I mean, it stands up to impact and everything else very, very well. It's just not a good amp guard arrow, but it's a suitable one. Either way, okay as it is. Well, we're running out of time here. We'll post another video here soon. I want to do some impact tests with some of the remaining carbon and wood shafts that we have. But I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, and at least been informative if nothing else. Again,
Break
that's
things for science.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
we broke things for
there's a whole
science.
pile
This is
of
what happens when you're late, kids.
Ah.
All right, until the next video.